When we first kind of showed off the AI system, one of those specialty support coordinators was like, what the system produced was probably spot on to what I've come up with in similar plans. But Vel did it in 90 seconds, and that would have taken me 3 weeks.
Hello, Difference Maker, and welcome to IDD Leader, the podcast that's all about helping human service organizations retain and grow their workforce using behavioral science. I am your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. Have you ever wondered how AI might impact the field of human services? Well, today you don't have to wonder about some distant future of what might be. You're going to hear from Dr. Syard Evans. She's the CEO of Arkansas Support Network, and she's going to share how AI right now is impacting their organization and making them be able to live out their values even more fully than before. They've developed an AI tool that is, in my opinion, transformative at really bringing clarity and alignment to all of the frontline staff on how to live person-centered, or how to create a person-centered environment for those being served. In our conversation, you'll also hear about what it looks like to be very mission-centered and how to live out organizational values at a very high level. The conversation is split into 2 episodes, so this will be part 1, and the next episode we release will be part 2. Stick around till the end, and I'll share with you a free resource to help you strengthen your staff. Without further ado, enjoy the conversation. All right, well, Syard, let's start with the basics. What kinds of services does Arkansas Support Network provide? What's your role? And when was the first time in your career that you knew, I need to be doing this kind of work?
So the easy low-hanging fruit there, Arkansas Support Network is a statewide home and community-based service provider in Arkansas. And, you know, a lot of people have that title, but we're pretty radical in our approach to that, and really exist, I think, to a large degree as a unicorn in the service industry. We provide in-home supported living services. That's about 96% of our budget and revenue. We have some auxiliary programs, some vocational services. We even have a very, very small day program that we're currently in the process of evolving into a more of a community collective, and shedding the regulatory requirements of day program because it's not in line with our philosophy. So the simple answer is we provide supported living services. We go into people's homes. The majority of the folks that we're supporting one-on-one in the environments that they live and work. We have probably less than 20% of the folks we support are utilizing shared staffing because they have an apartment and they have a roommate who also receives services, those types of settings. But we don't provide congregate services. We don't operate group homes. We don't own any property. We're purists in our belief that the people we support are whole human beings who deserve to live whole human being lives, and all of the mess that comes with that, which is different, I think, than a lot of traditional service philosophies. I am today the CEO at Arkansas Support Network. I've been in that role since January 1 of 2018, but I just celebrated my 25th anniversary with the organization. I started as a direct support professional when I was 19 years old, and truth be told, I would much rather be a direct support professional. That is the work that I love. I never made a conscious decision to be here, and I certainly never made a conscious decision to be a chief executive officer. As a college student, I was pursuing heavily my major in my social life, and I was very good at it. I'm still very good at it. But I had a scholarship that included housing, but that really restricted my ability to pursue wholeheartedly my social life. So I moved off campus and found out that you had to pay rent and bills and things.
All shucks.
And yeah, you needed a job to do that. I'm a dairy farmer's daughter. I grew up on a farm. I know how to work hard, but I didn't pick up a lot of those surviving in the world skills beyond that. So I needed a job, and I played basketball at the local community center with a guy who was like, you should come work for us. Not because he thought this was my calling and this was the work that I was going to spend my career focused on, but because Arkansas Support Network always has had a referral bonus for
Yes.
staff who recruit other staff. So this guy brings me an application with his name already filled in, and after I stayed for 90 days, he got $100. That was 25 years ago, and he still works for us. And
Oh, wow.
today I'm his CEO. So, yeah, I never made a decision to be here. This was work that just intuitively made sense to me, and especially here. The opportunity to not just provide supports to people, but to really challenge the systems of oppression that operate within our society and to resist the devaluation of all people with marginalizing characteristics. That's really invigorating for me. It's what I love doing, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't have the opportunity to do that every day.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing the same thing I heard when I first met you, which is we do things a little different. You know, we're pretty radical in our beliefs here, and I hear that already in your introduction woven in. But can you paint a bit more of a picture of that, like on the ground or in the day-to-day, whether operations or just paint a bit more of a picture, if you don't mind?
Yeah. One of the characteristics of our organization that we're really notorious for is that we have a real bona fide zero reject policy. We support anyone who selects us to provide services, regardless of what that looks like. And it's funny, several years ago, we were going through an accreditation review, and the reviewers kept asking us about our application process. You know, how do you screen people? How do you, and, you know, we were like, well, here's our transition into services. Here's kind of our initial intake, and they're like, no, the screening process. I'm like, we're a zero reject organization. They're like, yeah, everybody is, but everybody also draws a line, right? Everybody also, and we don't. That just doesn't exist for us. We certainly have situations where we struggle to support folks, but it's not because we refuse to support folks, right? When we struggle to support folks, we try to be as collaborative as possible. We pull in all the resources that are available to that individual, natural supports, other support service providers, state managed care systems, whatever, and we really try to be creative and innovative. And how do we work through these issues? So that means we support folks who have some gnarly reputations, who are really difficult to serve, and have done a really good job of kind of disrupting the traditional service system, which endears them to me greatly, because I appreciate that energy. I see familiarity in that energy. And so we just try to show up and navigate those situations creatively and innovatively. And what we find is when we're able to empower those folks, they actually are a whole lot more successful than when we bring the same kind of lens that the traditional service system brings, which is this person has done some things and so they need to be controlled. We need a controlled, confined environment. We believe that it's actually the opposite. We need to hear that person better. We need to empower them to live their life, and figure out how we can do that while we support the needs that they have. And you know, we've had some amazing quote unquote success stories, and we've also had some utter fall on your face failures in that. And for me, the thing that is different for Arkansas Support Network than a lot of other providers is our risk tolerance. we are way more willing to go there. If this is what you want your life to look like, okay, we'll try to figure it out. Whereas I think in the provider industry in general, we all get so bogged down with the liabilities of our organizations that the people we support really don't have a true bona fide opportunity to choose what their lives look like. They're given a kind of a package or parameters, and in the right situations, they're able to kind of, design the dollhouse the way that you want it to look. But they're often not really empowered to live their lives. And so, we are constantly engaged in advocacy, supporting people to get married, supporting people to parent children, supporting people to own their own homes. We recently supported an individual that we've actually served for a couple decades. We started supporting him as a child. When he became of age, the system kind of naturally pushed him into a guardianship relationship with his parents. And as all parent guardianship relationships go, over the years that became a strain on their relationship, right? This formal decision-making role took mom out of being mom and created a lot of conflict between them. And so this is a guy with an intellectual disability, needs support, has functional limitations in a lot of decision-making areas, but has also been really determined to be as independent as possible. And so we've utilized supported decision-making contract. Our team did a great job of advocating with him to get the guardian on board. And about probably 2 months ago, he successfully was awarded his full legal decision-making rights back by the court that took them from him initially. And I have a lot of colleagues that are like, that's great work, but what pays for that? Like, where do you get funding for that? And the answer is we really don't. I mean, we just, that's important work to us, and that's work that we bake into our mission. If our job is to provide supported living services to you, and this is your priority, then this is our job, and we need to be able to resource that, figure out how to make that work. So in that instance, we actually have been able to figure out how to make that work.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. What a full circle moment for him.
Absolutely.
And I hear that it's sounds like it's a stretch to be able to live this mission, and that maybe some of the funding structures aren't designed in that with those values in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last time we talked, you had mentioned about 2 lists of affirmations, and I was wondering, could you share what are those affirmations and how do your staff use them, and your individuals? Yeah.
So the affirmations list. This is going to be a lengthy answer, as if they haven't all already been really lengthy answers. So the affirmations list are a tool that's a part of an innovations project that we've been working on really in concept for probably the last 3 or 4 years, but in like hands-on building stuff, making it happen really for about the last year. We were able to access some funding, some ARPA funding. We had to do a lot of advocacy to even get access to it because our state was completely content to decline COVID relief dollars during that time for lots of reasons. Some of the kind of party talking point aspects of it, but also just that the state was determined that we don't have the resources at the state level to manage those types of contracts and dollars and projects and that kind of stuff. And so we actually worked with some allied stakeholders for home and community-based services and advocated, put some pressure on state and elected officials, really just illustrating that we have this massive workforce emergency, ongoing challenge that COVID has only exacerbated.
Yeah.
And here are millions of federal dollars. Like, we have to. We can't forego these. So we were able to get the state to agree to submit an ARPA funding request. And the state came back and said, but you're going to have to help. Providers, we're going to have to set up provider work groups to build out these plans, and you're going to have to contribute to this labor, which we're always willing to do. So I led a provider work group around enabling technology, and we submitted an ARPA plan based on the knowledge that we have from really researching and pursuing relationships across the country and beyond to try to get enabling technology here. We see it as the future for the service industry, that it has to be a part of this. We reject that image of the robot workforce that takes over and we don't have to worry about DSPs anymore. That's not accurate. But we know that enabling technology offers the only triple win that I've ever seen in the service industry. Most of the time, things that are good for the payer are not good for the provider, and they're not good for the person receiving services. If they're good for the provider, they're usually not good for the person receiving services. And if they're good for the person receiving services, they're usually expensive and they're not good for the payer or the provider. Enabling technology really offers a triple win that if we will invest in the infrastructures that are necessary to operate good quality enabling technology, it becomes a long-term cost savings, a significant one. For providers that are strapped with overtime expenses and just being stretched too thin, and really being regulated to be responsible for things that they're not funded for, which is a significant challenge. Enabling technology really offers innovative solutions there. And that piece that's usually missing from our industry's innovations and evolutions is that enabling technology, when done well and done right with the right parameters in line with best practices, is actually empowering for the people that we support. It creates a greater level of independence, and it really allows people to function in their lives in a way that they're just not able to with traditional supports. Now, it requires a lot of safeguarding to prevent privacy violations and just that continuation of rights violations. But if you do it well and you do it right, it's golden. So all of that, we pursued aggressively the opportunity to put some of those ARPA dollars to expanding services in Arkansas to include enabling technology, because currently it's not a funded service. And so we were able to get a project up and running, and as a part of that project, we were able to access an innovations grant. So they opened it up to some select providers to say, hey, if you've got an idea that you would like to bring to life, here's some dollars to be able to do that. So we got an innovations grant to develop an AI-powered tool that allows us to develop training or planning and implementation materials for support planning, for life planning for a person. And so we've built an AI tool that addresses some of the major concerns that exist for AI in general. The number one concern that we had is that AI is just a reflection of society, and society is ableist and discriminatory towards people with disabilities. So we built a system that allows us to teach our AI what's important to us, and to really teach our AI the doctrine that guide the way we think about the people we support. So we've taught it the 10 principles of disability justice by Sins Invalid. We've taught it the basic assurances from CQL. We've taught it the charting the life course, planning, modalities and framework that really empower people to be the drivers in their own lives.
So real quick, I'm kind of geeking out on this, but if I'm hearing you right, you are to use like a Marvel metaphor, you're training this to be Jarvis and not Ultron. Is that what I'm hearing you right?
Listen, I'm really cool and not cool enough to know your Marvel metaphor. But
that's all right.
It sounds
yes.
It sounds
I'm sure that's what's happening. Okay. Keep going.
Sounds like going. But anyway, so in this, we and we've developed a continuous learning process, because one of the things that I recognize, I don't sleep a lot, and so at 2:00 in the morning, I read stuff that I'm like, this is amazing. This is exactly what we were talking about in a journal article or research article or blah blah blah, and so I'll send it to my chief wellness officer and be like, we need to talk about this. We need to figure out where we can blah, 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 blah. And then we don't. We never do. Like she'll read it and she'll be like, yeah, that's great. That we name people. We're like, that applies to so-and-so and that. And then we don't do anything with it, right? It maybe it informs us in the next decision that we come in contact with, but it doesn't inform the 1,000 people that work at Arkansas Support Network. And so that has long been kind of the vision in my head, is that I want to be able to create a support planning and implementation structure that makes the values and the philosophy that we have as plain language and direct and just, I often say I've spent about 10 years of my career training, teaching, doing keynote presentations, consulting with other organizations and applying those things to us around understanding systems of oppression and how they impact the people we support and how we as providers perpetuate them. How we are not, the difference makers. We are often the executioners of the discriminatory barriers that the people we support face, and how to do that differently. And I have been very unsuccessful at changing the world in that approach. And even our organization, I've made little progress with that. And so the focus has turned to building a tool that just makes it matter of fact. I don't care if you understand the systems of oppression around you. I do, in fact, and I think you should. But if you come and work for me and we're paying you the bare minimum to exist, which is what we're paying you because of our reimbursement rates, I don't expect you to have the same kind of care and compassion about systemic issues and do the research and learning and understanding and the difficult work of accountability and self-awareness and all those things. You're not incentivized to do that. You're coming here to work a shift. You're coming here to do work that's enjoyable, and you likely care about the person you support and you have a good relationship with them, but you're not coming here to change the world, and you're not coming here to plot with me some superhero plan about how we can do it together. And so the AI system is designed to take all the things that we learn, all those articles that get sent to somebody at 2:00 in the morning, we've stopped sending them to each other. And we've started sending them to VEL, our AI tool. Mm-hmm. VEL stands for Visioning an Empowered Life. And so we're using this process of continuous learning for the AI so that every plan that it develops actually is better and more improved and more in line with best practices as we go. And then the outputs of VEL, this gets to your original question, which you probably have forgotten already.
I actually haven't, but yes, this is the backstory. It matters because it puts the whole thing in context, and it kind of also paints a picture as, if I'm listening to what you're saying, thinking, well, how can I, apply this here, seeing that there's the background of the funding for the innovation for the building the tool. Okay, but keep going.
Yeah. So VEL is an AI-powered tool that starts with a facilitated conversation with a VEL facilitator, a group of folks that we have trained on the doctrine and the values and the philosophy. And the task becomes much more manageable. We have about 40 VEL facilitators that we've gone all in with, which is way more reasonable than 1,000 people that I never see face to face, right? They are working in, 5 miles down a dirt road in a trailer house in White County, Arkansas. And it is White County, it's not White County. So you got to say it right. But the influence to that, being able to teach this to everybody is impossible. But being able to say this is a small select group, that's much more manageable. So we train these VEL facilitators, and we go through this exploration process. And the exploration process is based largely on the Charting the Life course planning framework. We've built in a lot of things that are important to us, kind of added on, but we do the life course trajectory, we map relationships, and we use the domains and life stages of Charting the Life course to really collect information and learn about a person. And then VEL takes that information, and we have some standard prompts that generate our support plan. So the first step is that we create suggested goals and objectives based on what we have learned about the person. VEL gives us suggestions, and then we work with that individual for them to make selections about those goals and objectives. Because what we didn't want to do was to create a world in which AI just told you what your life goals were, right?
Enter the Terminator, yes.
Yes, absolutely. We want
to real quick clarification. So the 40, the facilitators, or I think that's what you called them,
yep.
Are they then, when someone starts up services with you, are they going out to
yes.
meet them and go through this process? It's not that they're then training the other frontline staff.
No,
they themselves are going out. Okay,
they're
and this is
facilitating that exploration.
Kind of like an interview, but I mean not in a formal sense, but asking a bunch of questions of the individuals to get to know them, so that it can, like, truly individualize it. Is that am I understanding this correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Yeah.
And so once that person selects the goals and objectives, VEL makes them SMART, breaks them down into really, we do a presentation on this, and as painful as it is, I like to put up, one of our original pilot participants was an early adopter for us, and she allowed us to take her old plan and her new plan and compare them.
Moment of truth, huh? Really,
yes, it's excruciating to look at. But it also is a beautiful illustration of what we've built and what we've created, and the difference maker that it can be. So it creates these goals and objectives, and then we turn our focus to these prompts of VEL. It's basically a conversation with the AI, and we have some standard prompts that we use, but we also train our facilitators on how to dialogue with VEL, right? Again, we don't want this to be, well, AI said you need to have a 3-headed dog, and so it didn't make much sense, but this is what came out of the system, and so therefore we're rocking with it. It's been really important for us to train and empower those facilitators to say, thank you for that. However, it doesn't meet this, and can you make an adjustment to that based on this thing? Which has been really exciting to kind of watch, because what AI offers us is efficiency and standardization. So if we want these values present in everything, AI can ensure that. AI can ensure that we are using these sources to generate what's coming out. And AI can do it quickly. We've actually had some of our, we have a department we call specialty supports, and they're essentially case managers. They're the people that if you have a need over and above kind of basic supported living, somebody will make a referral to them and they'll come in and help. Our specialty team is the team that worked with the guy and supported decision making and got his guardianship reinstated, right? That kind of thing. And so when they're also have joined our VEL facilitator team, because duh, they're situated in a great place to do that. But when we first kind of showed off the AI system, one of those specialty support coordinators was like, what the system produced was probably spot on to what I've come up with in similar plans. But Vel did it in 90 seconds, and that would have taken me 3 weeks to research, to investigate, to put in plain language, version that people could do something with. She was like, just the efficiency of it is amazing. So we create a kind of a package of implementation resources. We create an individual summary that really is targeted at the DSPs and the frontline supervisors, that is this kind of plain language description of the human being that we're supporting from a assets and capabilities perspective, right? You can go in the file and learn all about diagnosis and functional limitation. We want people to really see this person for the whole person that they are and the valuable person that they are, the worthy person that they are. So we really frame, Vel frames for us kind of this description of this individual that's often unlike anything that you will find in their files or even conversations that happen as a part of their service delivery. And then we can create DSP shift guides because we often struggle sometimes with those teams where the daytime person and the evening time person have conflicts because it's unclear about who should be doing what. So Vel will take those goals that we built and create complementary DSP shift descriptions. So on my shift, these are the things I'm focused on and working on, and on your shift, these are the things that you're focused on and working on, which has been really helpful. And then I'm finally here to answer your question. We built in along the way, kind of through trial and error. This is the brainchild of our chief wellness officer, Lindsay Parker, who's phenomenal. We recognize that good relationship skills are hard to come by in human beings in general. That, the expectation is that good DSPs are people that come in and have good relationships with the people we support. And I think, we went through a time in our industry where we would say, oh, professionalism, and you did it, whatever. The reality is the people that provide the best supports are the people that could come in and have good rapport and relationship with the people they support. Yeah. And so we know that, but we also know that the majority of the people who work for us struggle with personal relationships. They have relationships that they're not nurturing and supporting in a positive, uplifting way in their own personal life. So it's a false assumption to think that they're just going to naturally come here and know how to do that just because we ask. So to try to combat that, again, we don't have the resources or the time to make everyone a good spouse and parent, right? Like the people we employ. We just don't. If somebody wants to give us grant funding for that, we'll tackle that. But as of today, right, the minimum 12-hour training requirement that the state funds us for, that's insufficient resources to do that. So we wanted AI to give us those plain language guidance and direction. I often say I want the IKEA furniture assembly instructions.
Yes. It's so much better than all this written, like you can't follow all the written instructions that are put this thing here, but those diagrams are spot on. I know what you're talking about. Come on.
I, despite all of the alphabet soup after my name and PhDs and blah, 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 and all that, I am not a furniture maker. But thanks to IKEA, I am when I need to be, right? I don't need a workforce of folks that are Dr. Ruth relationship gurus. I just need them to be good at the relationships with the people that they support when I need them to be, right? That's what we're aiming for. And so out of that has come 2 affirmation lists that it's a part of our standard prompting now. So every plan, this becomes baked into. One is an affirmation list for the person who receives services. So it is a list usually of about 8 to 10 sentences, short, direct, plain language sentences that just really highlight what we've learned about this person through the exploration that's occurred, things that motivate them, skills that they have, things that other people admire about them, like about them. And it is a list that we give to DSPs and encourage them to memorize, encourage them to really make a part of their daily interactions. And depending on the situation, there are some folks that we support that their team is going to receive that and be told, your job is to make sure that you say 3 to 5 of these sentences every single day. Because maybe we're struggling with some relationship building, or a person is kind of in a situation of unrest and really needing that grounding. For other folks, it's given and trained as kind of a tool to navigate difficult situations or to really support and reinforce. And honestly, for some staff, it's just a list that you need to review every day to remind yourself to see the value in this person, because you're struggling with the societal biases that you bring to the table. A lot of people.
Can you give an example, of 2 or 3 affirmations, just to kind of make this a little more easy?
Yeah. So the woman who kind of allowed us to use her plan in our presentations and things like that. She's an artist. She has cerebral palsy. She uses a power chair. She uses a communication device. But she's gone through training for like CAD design and stuff I don't understand. But she creates art, and she has been active and engaged in the art scene for many years. But COVID really knocked that out for her. And so it disconnected her, and one of the things that she kind of learned, we all learned during her exploration, is that her confidence was that removal and that disconnect, her confidence was a big issue. So her desire was to reconnect and get back involved, but there were always kind of these resistance things that were coming up. And so her affirmation list really focuses on just reminding her that you are a great artist, that you're a creative person, that you have created great work, and that your art is really important to you, right? Those kinds of things. So that when you get to that place of kind of frustration and fear and concern around pursuing the goal that you said was your goal, you have those reminders there. And she has talked about how powerful that is, that really, that probably more so than any support that she gets otherwise, has helped her make progress towards a goal that's really important to her.
And so these affirmations, like with the example of this lady that you're talking about, the DSPs will the tool that you've created with AI, mm-hmm. will help create these based on what the inputs from what the individual's sharing that the facilitator got to, and then the DSP has these affirmations, and that kind of, if I'm hearing you right, it helps to center the individual on their own goals and their own value and things they care about, but then it also helps to frame things, if I'm hearing you right, for the DSPs, for the direct mm-hmm. direct support
absolutely
professionals working with them.
One of the things that framing, I think, is so important because, historically, I've worked with a lot of teams. Everybody wants to collaborate and be creative when someone's behavior is not good. That the behavior problems is such a motivating factor for us. But I'm always fascinated when I get to visit with teams and I'm like, okay, well, tell me about this person. Like, well, they curse in public, so do I. They are disruptive. They refuse to do things. Right, you're describing me. I'm going to need some more than what you're talking about. And so I say, what do they enjoy doing? Well, they like to eat. Go to Walmart. Okay. Yeah, me too. Not Walmart, but what else? Like, what else? What motivates them? Giving me a hard time? Like that, this is legit kind of what we get to. And so we know it is all kind of wrapped up in together. It is that failure to see this human being as a whole human being, failure to give them opportunities to develop likes, dislikes, preferences, right? Exposure opportunities, those kinds of things. And so what we recognize is that a lot of DSPs just don't know where to start, right? I don't know the things to say to you. When you start doing the thing I want you to not do, all I got in my repertoire is stop. Don't do that. Please quit. Which is almost guaranteed to make me do it more, right? That's just not it. And so what I see in this affirmation list is an opportunity to remind this person why things are important to them, right? To remind this person about the things they care about, and to remind this person about why they're worth all of this, for why they're worth the effort and discomfort for themselves, right? It's not just about you being worth it for me. It's about you being worth it for you. It's about, understanding your own value and reconnecting to your motivation at a time when you're probably struggling to connect with it, and doing it in a real direct and simple way, not like lecturing you about it and not like bombarding you with words about it, but just, a simple 5-word sentence that just reinforces to you that, the people in your life are really important to you. And that oftentimes can be so grounding in a moment of escalation or in a moment of frustration or, whatever. It can also be just really reinforcing without the escalation or the frustration. It helps you stay grounded on why any of us are here. We're not here to control you. We're not here to be the kind of system, that the bubble that exists around you to keep you confined from the world that you exist in. We're here to support you for the things that you want to achieve with your life. And so that affirmation, I think, helps us all stay focused on that. It helps us all ground in that. And the second set of affirmations really, I think, does that even more. And that's affirmations for the DSP. That's a description of their role and their responsibilities. My job is to support and encourage this person. My job is to remind this person that they are a creative artist. My job is to remind this person that being an uncle is one of the greatest joys of their life, right? Like 8 to 10, it's the same list. It's just a different target. One targets the person receiving services, and the other targets the DSP.
And so what has been the impact on your staff since you've rolled this out? First of all, has it gone global across your...
Yeah, it is not going global. We're probably a 30% implementation across the organization, but we're a big organization.
Sure, no, of course.
We're looking at about 550, would be 100%. So... what's that impact been on that 30% then for the staff? I think I'm hearing it, but I want to hear it more explicitly. Yeah. So it's been, I think, as positive as you would expect, right? I think it's, we've heard people just kind of marvel at the simplicity of it, the impact and the power in the simplicity of it. And, you have those people that are like, I've seen 600,000 ISPs. I've been doing this for 20 years, and okay, it's another plan, it's another whatever, and then you follow back up with them a couple months later, and you hear them use an affirmation, and you're like, okay, well, I don't need you to tell me that it's impressive to know that this is making a difference. And probably the thing that's been the most exciting for me is looking at how it impacts the entire support system, right? So we can generate these plans, these affirmations, these resources, and then we can go in and chat with Vel and ask for additional information. We can say, based on this, create a list of activities to do to help pursue this goal, right? Like that we can generate this additional content on the fly, because in Vel, you do exploration and you save these pieces in a dedicated chat for that person. So it restricts the problematicness of AI to go out and pull in other information. And so it is this closed conversation that you can control what you're building off of. Yeah. And so I can open up Vel today and pull up, somebody's chat and say, I can look at the exploration and say, okay, it was done 6 weeks ago. Since then, this person has had a change in their support team. And so I can ask Vel to, based on the previous exploration, give us some activities to help introduce and acclimate a new DSP to this team, right? What are some things that we can do as a team that the person and the new DSP can do together so that they can learn about one another? And so Vel's created like some role play games or just some interview questions for each other to ask back and forth. It really gives you kind of in that moment adjustment opportunities, which is really cool. Yeah. We have a contract with the Division of Children and Family Services in the state. So when kids come into custody and they have a developmental disability or some type of support need that makes it difficult for them to be placed in traditional foster care or shelter services, the state will contract with us. And I dropped in on the Vel facilitator group a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about a scenario where we had a young man placed with us, and the Vel facilitator had gone and met with him, his caseworker, his therapeutic foster provider, DSPs, maybe a school personnel as well, and kind of navigated this exploration and created a plan that everybody was really excited about. Like the school was going to take it back and look at their IEP. How do they incorporate these goals and objectives and information in there? And then when the facilitator followed back up, like 2 weeks later, just to check and see how things were going, to answer any questions, she learned that the state, I guess, had identified an out-of-state family member. And so the young man had been moved from that foster placement, and with a grandparent that really didn't know him, didn't have any knowledge of him or anything like that. So I said, give them the tool. Like, go back to Vel and say, based on the information that we have, based on the exploration, can you create new goals and objectives and support information based on this change in living environment, living with a grandparent that you don't know, blah, blah, yeah. And then send it with him, send that to the caseworker, send that on to grandma, like give him the best shot for that to be a supportive system that really knows and understands him. And so we were able to do that.
That sounds amazing. I mean, that's phenomenal to hear how it's influencing not just your own staff, but the whole team around, the whole team around individuals. Now, have you heard? I mean, what are frontline staff saying, or what feedback have you been getting about this tool? Other than, I heard the one like, oh yeah, I've been doing this. I've seen 600 ISPs, and but then it still kind of snuck in there a little bit, like it still influenced it, but. What other kind of feedback have you been hearing from the staff?
The thought of it creates quite a bit of grumbles. A lot of people are, and we've, people have been like, what about the ethical issues with AI, And I'm like, listen, if billionaires can make more billions off of AI and destroy the environment to 1,000% degree of the 1% that we're doing to leverage it to really improve the people's quality of life, that's a trade-off for me that, AI is here and everyone around you is using AI and everyone around you is going to continue to use AI. And I am a principled person to the millionth degree. There is a long list of retailers I will not spend dollars at, and lots of things that I'm pretty extreme in. But I draw the line at saying we're going to wholly avoid this innovative technology and opportunity for the people we support because of these types of kind of environmental concerns and things like that. So I also, because of those concerns that we hear from lots of folks, we spend a lot of time really trying to understand it and understand. I mean, for me, the priority in building a solution via AI that addressed the number one problem with AI was about ableist bias. It was about, AI, open source AI only produces for you the same biases and discriminatory components that exist in open society. AI just takes information that's out there. It's not creating ideas. It is just pulling together ideas in a really effective way. And so that's why we ended up with the system that we ended up with, because we were determined to create a tool that had the bias we wanted it to have, which was the values, the philosophy that really rejected the societal bias of ableism and people with disabilities are just a little bit less human than everybody else, right? We wanted to reject that all out. And so we created this mainframe. However, I have yet to see the person that's been exposed to the outputs of VEL that wasn't impressed. Now, being impressed is not transformative by any means. So being able to say, man, that's good, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to use those things on a daily basis. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're bought in and that you see the outputs of this as your instructions to do your job. That really comes in the training that we provide to folks, and continuing to perfect that IKEA diagram, right? The better that we can put this out there. I really don't care if you even know what VEL is or appreciate, what it's doing. I want the folks who work for us to have a one-pager that makes very clear and plain what your responsibilities are on shift today. That's really the aim. How can we get that information out there, make it as simple as possible, as clear as possible, as direct as possible? That's when we've done the thing most effectively that we've set out to do. And I think we still have work to do on that to get to that, IKEA diagram wholly and fully. We have some pieces right now that we need to continue to advance them and involve them to make them crisp and clean and direct and easy and straightforward. But I return to, I've yet to engage with a person who's been able to receive some of the VEL implementation materials that wasn't impressed with what it produced and the value that it provided for them in their role.
Okay. And is that now being integrated into then like the onboarding or the training for new hires?
Yeah. So the design of our VEL and kind of as the rollout is that we start every plan engagement with VEL exploration. And with that, we're able to create the resources necessary to submit for justification of services, that prior authorization request. We're able to create the comprehensive goals and objectives for the ISP that gets sent to the support coordinator who oversee that frontline supervisor who's coordinating services. And then the implementation resources are sent to our DSP development specialty team that are responsible for ensuring that people receive one-on-one training for the roles that they're working in. And so those pieces become essentially the one-on-one training materials that you're being trained on.
So if someone wants to learn more about leveraging AI, I don't. Can they reach out to you? Do you provide trainings,
absolutely.
or what's their next step? What's their next step?
People in line at the grocery store learn more about these things when they stand there with me, whether they want to or not. So sure, please reach out.
How should they do so?
My email address is sevans@supports.org. And then our website is supports.org. So I also have a really unique name, and if you Google it, you'll get lots of stuff that comes up. That I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all those
Very
things.
good.
We're happy to connect and talk about these things for sure.
Wow. That was amazing. I mean, I learned so much about how they're using this AI tool at their organization. And don't worry, I'll put in the show notes her contact information. Feel free to reach out to her directly if you want to learn more about what's going on there or how you could implement it at your organization. I always like to leave you with at least one action step or action move that you could do this week. Here's what I would say from this one. I want you to do a brainstorm, a 5-minute brainstorm to think about what would it look like if you could have a tool that would clearly articulate the values of your organization and would help your staff know exactly how to do their next shift. Think about that for a minute. What would that change? What would that free up? How would that make a difference at your organization? Now, I also promised you a tool. I want your supervisors to do their best at supporting the frontline staff who are supporting the individuals. I've created a playbook for that. It's 4 supervisor habits that help with DSP retention, but more than just retaining staff, like, oh, they didn't leave. It empowers the staff to be the best that they can be at their work. And it's based on some evidence-based types of practices for supervisors. You can get your free copy, PDF download, at iddleader.com/supervisor. And don't forget to come back next week at the next episode for part 2 of my conversation with Syard. You do not want to miss as she starts to share about the very real challenges and successes that they've had with their workforce. But until next time, difference maker, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.